And in the blue corner, we have young, voracious social media journalist Fabrizio Romano, creator of the Here We Go. And in the red corner, we have the Athletic's very own rare poster, credible journalist David Ornstein. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And shots are being fired in the journalistic world, right? It is not as, brazen as that. Do you know what I mean? People aren't categorically calling each other out, but there's definitely a bit of calling out going on, man. So today's story is going to basically be a reaction to the information yesterday, obviously, that I've already reported on, that Fermin Lopez is supposedly being considered by Chelsea, right? David Ornstein dropped the tweet, and Fabrizio Romano followed up with a video, no tweet actually, no written evidence of this, but followed up with a tweet a little bit later. So today we are going to be talking about the perils of social media football journalism, and who do we believe? But guys, before we get into it, if you are enjoying the content, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. But right, guys, let's get into it. So I'm going to start off. This is the tweet from David Ornstein that started it all yesterday, right? Chelsea evaluating possibility of move for Fermin Lopez. So in a vacuum, right, in isolation, let's break all this down a little bit as well. Chelsea evaluating possibility of move for Fermin Lopez. So what that means is Chelsea are thinking about it, right? In a nutshell, we're thinking about it. No contact yet with Barcelona, but CFC speaking to 22-year-old attacking midfielders camp as options explored in case of exits and given Barcelona's depth in Spain internationals position. So on the whole, right, what this is saying is supposedly Chelsea are considering the concept of making a bid for Fermin Lopez. There's been no contact with the club yet, right? So David honestly said that from the off. There's been no contact with the club. And obviously Barcelona have lots of players in that position. So we are basically just seeing if we can, if that's even a possibility, if Fermin Lopez would be interested in a move to the Premier League. So nothing too crazy there, right? Nothing too crazy. Now, I don't have it, but, and because there was no tweet about it, it's annoying I can't compare these, but yesterday I did a 4-hour stream with the Blue Lounge and with Worldwide Chelsea and with Behind the Dugouts, and it was wicked. And we watched this video 5 times, right? Fabrizio Romano posted a rebuttal, I guess you might call it, basically stamping on this claim that there was any sort of connection between Chelsea and Fermin Lopez. Now, the interesting thing is Romano came out, he looked a little bit agitated as well, man. He was really, really kind of going in on this video and kind of haphazardly basically questioned the quality of David Ornstein's reporting as well. So the thing that Fabrizio Romano said is weird because it's almost what David Ornstein said. Yes, there's been no contact between Chelsea and Barcelona, and this is something that Fabrizio Romano mentioned several times. He's like, karma, there's been no contact between the clubs. Everyone likes Fermin Lopez. Chelsea like lots of players, So he seemed to really be coming out in order to try and stamp this bit of news down, right? And that was really interesting in itself because ultimately what David Ornstein said is Chelsea are thinking about it. So supposedly there has been connection made to Fermin Lopez's camp, right? Other reports, a couple of Spanish journalists and stuff that we looked at yesterday have come out and said, yeah, okay, Chelsea have got in contact with the camp just to explore the idea if Fermin Lopez would be interested in a move, should we make one? Before we go and make bids and stuff, they're kind of sounding out the player in the camp first. And just Fabrizio Romano, man, just came out with his chest and was like, no, absolutely not. No, this is not happening. And the other interesting thing about what Fabrizio Romano said is he used that opportunity to reaffirm that Chelsea are talking to Xavi Simons and Alejandro Garnacho, right? So this is where things start to get a little bit murky, isn't it? Because obviously journalists have generally got some sort of agenda. And I'm going to sort of break down the differences between David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano to try and figure out why Romano kind of got so hyped up about this, right? So Fabrizio Romano, since 2020, has been like the mogul, the guru, the network, do you know what I mean, itself. Like everyone kind of waits with bated breath for every single tweet that Fabrizio Romano does. And it is, he is obviously so well connected. Now, this is one thing, before we get into anything, like obviously Fabrizio Romano is a really amazing amazing journalist, and absolutely, like, you know, this isn't to say that whatever he says isn't true at all. It is just about the differences in, like, the validity of the claims and stuff. So Fabrizio Romano is a social media journalist. He is a personality, a brand into himself. Fabrizio Romano and Here We Go is a brand that obviously has a vested interest from Fabrizio himself. He created the Here We Go, and for the most part, it's got like 95% accuracy. Do you know what I mean? David Ornstein is a sports journalist who works for big companies. He used to work for the BBC, and obviously, as of the last few years, he works for The Athletic. So although David Ornstein will obviously have his own interests at heart, at the end of the day, when David Ornstein reports, he is representing The Athletic, who are one of the best sports, you know, news sources, and generally just, you know, rags. If you ever get a chance to subscribe to The Athletic, you absolutely should. Their pieces are generally really good. So David Ornstein has less self-interest, I think, than Fabrizio Romano does. And we can break this down a little bit further, right? So one of the things that has started to irritate fans a little bit about Fabrizio Romano's reporting over the last couple of years is just how much he will report about the same thing over and over and over again. As far as he retweets his own tweets, you know, just to kind of get it back in the algorithm. Obviously, this is how he makes his money, man. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, I completely get it. But as far as like being a football fan who wants to see what's going on is, Fabrizio Romano will often take the same piece of news and just reword it a little bit and get it out just to reinforce that it's still being talked about and still going on. The prime example of this in itself is what I found out today. So obviously Fabrizio Romano has been talking about Xavi Simons and also a lot about Alejandro Garnacho and the Man United stuff, right? We see stuff almost every single day. Since June up until now, Fabrizio Romano has tweeted about Alejandro Garnacho 40 times. 40 times, right? And there just isn't that much information to know about the deal, right? We know Man United are talking to Chelsea. Man United want 50 mil. Chelsea want less. Garnacho wants to leave and is happy to sit on the bench in order to force that move through or make that happen. That's kind of the crux of it, right? And Fabrizio Romano has spread that out into 40 tweets. So and it feels very similar with the Xavi Simons stuff, doesn't it, as well? He's like always constantly, yes, Chelsea are talking. Even when it's calmed down and cooled down and stuff, we're getting these reports from Fabrizio that are not necessarily news driven. Do you know what I mean? It's just a little bit more of like the conversation is still being had. Things go from being advanced to very advanced, and sometimes that is the limit of how much the story has progressed. But ultimately, as I said, Fabrizio Romano will be more self-interested in order to get stuff out, because this is how he makes a lot of his money, obviously through the social media platform. David Ornstein has come out as the credible counter, or not to say that Fabrizio is not credible. Of course he is. Of course he is. But in terms of like believing stuff when it happens, Fabrizio is starting to lose a little bit of that credibility because he posts so often, and the Here We Go has failed a couple of times as well. Now, that was unbelievable to say that he's already got this, do you know what I mean, this record that he's got for the amount of times he gets it right, because he is obviously very well connected. But the difference now is people are starting to defer a bit more to David Ornstein's wisdom, because when David Ornstein comes out and says something, there's been contact from the clubs, obviously all of his connections in the sports journalism world as far as places like The Athletic go, and obviously being from the UK, he's probably got stronger connections to, you know, the clubs itself, just through the nature of being English and working in the UK. And yeah, so generally when David Ornstein brings something out, right, people are like, oh, okay, this is a thing. And that's how it used to be for Fabrizio Romano. But because Romano is, people call him a bit of a content farmer and stuff, do you know what I mean? Because he pushes so much stuff out, and it's not changing very often, and that Here We Go has failed a couple of times. Like I say, the credibility is just starting to drop a little bit. Now, am I saying that you shouldn't believe Fabrizio Romano when he says something? Yeah, no, of course you should, man. But at the same time, it's like, is there a need really to massively update, you know, as far as the actual news goes, outside of the self-interest and the, you know, the money-making efforts from Romano to build his brand and obviously, you know, kind of put food on the table for himself. So David Ornstein has, like I say, basically become a bit more credible. And this is why this whole thing is really interesting, right? Because David Ornstein comes out with the tweet yesterday saying Chelsea are essentially thinking about talking to Fermin Lopez, and Fabrizio Romano comes out kind of with his chest, man. I really urge you to go and find that tweet if you can. It's not a tweet, sorry, it's a video. Like I say, it was actually like a video. I haven't actually been able to find some sort of written tweet rebutting what David Ornstein has said, but there are some choice words that Fabrizio Romano used in his video that would lead you to believe that he is kind of like trying to squash that, David Ornstein thing. He mentioned about, or obviously everyone's interested in Fermin Lopez, and, it's not a concrete rumour yet. That was one thing he said that was quite important. And he also said karma on the news about Fermin Lopez, right? Basically trying to say nothing's happening. In that same video, though, Fabrizio Romano did cover his own back by being like, oh, but, maybe something could happen. Do you know what I mean? And it was just like, why go on this tirade, obviously trying to put down David Ornstein's report about the Fermin Lopez thing and say, no, it's not happening. And then, like, in the same video, be like, oh, it could happen, though. So, look, man, I'm just keeping this for a reasonably short one. I just think the situation is fascinating. And if I'm honest, I'm so bored of the transfer news because there's nothing new. If anything, the Fermin Lopez was the first chunky thing that we've had to bite onto and actually kind of analyse, right? Because there is loads of really interesting stuff about that. He is a very similar player to Xavi Simons. And obviously what this could be is Chelsea have leaked the news to David Ornstein or his camp in order to get Ornstein to tweet about it, to put more pressure on Leipzig to get the deal through. So there's loads of reasons that this could absolutely be true. And the thing is, if Romano hadn't have come out and said anything, no one would have thought about it. But now because Romano's come out and kind of, made this big statement about it, now if it does happen, then Romano's going to look silly, whereas he wouldn't have done before. Do you know what I mean? He could have just, I guess it's just one of these really weird things, isn't it? Like another thing Romano said in the video that I found a little bit strange is like the situation is under control. And obviously he is self-interested in order to make, can he affect it? Like, absolutely not. But he wants the Garnacho and Xavi Simons deals to go through, right? Because he's been reporting about those all summer, 40 times about Garnacho. That is mental. So obviously he really wants his news to be at the top. And I guess if he isn't getting any news about Fermin Lopez from his contacts, David Ornstein comes out with that, then maybe he loses like a load of engagement or views on his page because people are going to other places to look at what this news is. So it's just all a bit mad, isn't it, man? It's just all a little bit mad. Like any one of these transfers could still happen. If the Fermin Lopez news that we've seen is true, then it'd be about 50 million euros we're interested in paying for him, which would make sense. Although it seems cheap from Barcelona's perspective, he's an academy player. Do you know what I mean? So that's book profit for them. 38 million pounds for us for a player who essentially fills that same sort of spot, role and function as Xavi Simons would. A little bit older, a little bit less experienced, which is, something to talk about in itself. But ultimately, it just kind of makes sense, man. It just kind of makes sense. And at the end of the day, we know that David Ornstein isn't going to come out and every single, day, like 4 or 5 times a day being like, oh yeah, Fermin Lopez is still being thought about. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to happen, is it? David Ornstein is just when he's had an update about something, he's going to come out and say it. So I think there might be something a little bit in this as well, with maybe Fabrizio Romano feels like he's losing his grip on the reporting world for a while. Having spoken to a few content creators, obviously we're all in the same boat at the moment, right? We're all trying to read the news, we're trying to put our own thoughts, feelings and opinions into it, and we're trying to get it out in our own way to our YouTube subscribers and our viewer base and grow our channels and do our own thing, right? I completely get it, but at the same time it's been really frustrating, do you know what I mean? Because it's like, when if the Garnacho news drops, I won't need to do like a long video about, he's going to do this and he can do this and this, because we've already talked about it a million times. Do you know what I mean? Because Romano keeps coming out 40 times in the last month and talking about Garnacho. And personally, I put it off for a little while as well. And I kind of came a little bit late to the party with the Garnacho stuff because I wanted to be kind of sure it was happening. And we've been sure it was been happening for like 2 weeks now. Do you know what I mean? So this is, I guess I find it really fascinating. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, especially with how drab the transfer news has been a little bit recently. Obviously, we're in the last 4 or 5 days or whatever of the transfer window now. We can absolutely expect things to start picking up soon. Of course we can. But this I've just found particularly interesting. The Romano and Xavi Simons versus David Ornstein and Fermin Lopez news. Do you know what I mean? David Ornstein doesn't care either, man. He's sat chilling with a cigar or a coffee or whatever it is that he does, and he's just like, yeah, cool, man. And obviously from Fabrizio Romano is kind of scrambling around trying to do some self-imposed damage control. I don't even really know what the damage was, to be honest. If anything, more news is good. And if Fabrizio Romano could have just backed off of that, but I guess if none of Romano's sources are saying that this is happening, which is what he said in his video as well, by the way, it's like, none of my sources have said anything about Fermin Lopez, absolutely no contact at all, karma. Yeah, it's all just a bit nuts, isn't it? And at the end of the day, this becomes a news story for us to talk about, doesn't it? So guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you exclusively get your news from people like me and other YouTubers who talk about the news, or do you go out there and you look for your own stuff as well? Are you a follower of Fabrizio Romano or David Ornstein on their respective social medias? Do you appreciate the fact that Fabrizio Romano does so many updates? Do you know what I mean? Is it a thing for you where you're like, no, I like that, man, because I kind of always know what's going on? Or is it a little bit fatiguing for you? And you're a bit like, I wish things would just drop when they're happening, right? So tell me in the comments, guys. Give me your Fabrizio Romano versus David Ornstein. Tell me who you prefer in the comments. I'd love to have a little chat with you about it. I'm probably going to try and come back and do a video later today, guys. I just wanted to get this one out early because we had a really good chat about it last night on the Blue Lounge's live stream. And I think he might be doing streams all of the time, man. So I might be popping up on those. So come and check them out whenever you can. Nice one, guys. I'm going to wrap the video up there. I hope you all have an absolutely wicked day. And I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Peace.